Welcome to Great Talk and Entertainment. I'm your host, KJ, and this is the YouTube channel where I review movies and TV shows from all your favorite superheroes, including Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and much more. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talk and Entertainment official channel. Now let's go, baby. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, everyone. My name is KJ and I am the host, and this is my spoiler review for episode 7 by Marvel's television, which is streaming on Disney Plus. Daredevil Born Again, episode 7 spoiler review. Again, if you have not seen this, please pause this, go watch it, come back and let me know what you think about this in the comments below. And if you could you please hit the thumbs up button? That would help this YouTube channel in so many ways. I truly appreciate it if you can. And let me know what your Marvel fan theories are about this series, this episode, or this whole season so far in the comments below, because I would love to hear it. But again, y'all been warned. Now, let's get into it. This episode starts off with Mayor Fisk getting some information that DareDevil is back again after Angel Torres tells the polices and the doctors and nurses that it was Daredevil, and we see Mayor Fisk seem kind of happy about it, which just pretty much shows us that these two need each other, like Batman needs the Joker and the Joker needs Batman. They can't not live without each other. They cannot be who they are if one is not the opposite of them, and we see through this episode how Mayor Fisk is just now becoming more obsessive with him. And we see Daredevil become more obsessed with the thing he's trying to stop, which is crime, which is more particular on Moose. And now, instead of asking Angel Torres to, what was you thinking type thing, we see him obsessing again, asking her questions about what happened before that, what was around him, what was his surrounding like, how many dead bodies did you see, etc., etc. I mean, even there was a time or a moment in this episode too, where we see Detective Jerry coming up to him and say, "Hey man, like stay out of this, we can handle this. What you're doing is forcing my hand," and type situation. And we see Matt Murdock just telling Jerry, you used to call me for stuff like this. Now you're telling me stay out of it. And they walk away. And, they're hinting too with, I forget the woman's name, but she's kind of like his partner throughout this series, kind of like Foggy was, right? And she just feels like she's been left out of the loop because she's now sensing that there's something else that they know about that these two are not fulfilling her in. And Jerry's obviously not going to reveal that he's Matt Murdock's Daredevil, but he could. It's teasing it. But, we see this. And also, there's this, if you remember the scene too in this episode, that Matt Murdock was taking a shower, and of course Heather joined in because they're in a relationship, but she's also realizing too that he's hiding something, and because she saw the wounds or whatever, the bruises from getting slammed against the brick wall underneath where the subway train is in New York, aka Hell's Kitchen, which obviously that would be very painful because Daredevil is not Captain America, Steve Rogers, and he's definitely not a mutant. So there's no healing abilities. He's a street level character. He doesn't have the Spider-Man strength. So, and then obviously he's not the only Marvel character like that. Like Sam Wilson is, the Falcon, Punisher. There's other street level characters. Everybody in the Thunderbolts except Bucky Barnes and the Red Russian. They kind of have that super soldier serum, but most of them don't. And so, there's a lot of street level characters basically that can get bruised up, but he's a prime example of the harsh reality being a vigilante with no actual superpowers. And, he's just learning based off of the skills he's able to learn and do. So his body does have limitations, but we see that his world, his other life is crumbling, which is his being him, Matt Murdock, the lawyer, handling cases, right? And his relationship's going to crumble. And, I can't tell either with that either. If, like, I know, like, it would make sense now based off the Netflix series and like Daredevil and Netflix's Defenders, where it's them and Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist, of course, and others. But the idea of, like, I get it, like, maybe this is the year where he's at storyline. He maybe he needs to find happiness within a relationship. But it just seems confusing on that to me, because I know they're trying to do a plot twist to it to kind of get a shock, like, oh, I didn't see that coming. But I feel like it's not going to be executed right. I think this is I think the love story between these two is kind of mushed up, kind of piled onto the story, and it's not really smooth telling it and trying to make it make sense to the audience. Because, again, this is more, now that Daredevil's in the MCU, do you focus more on building up Daredevil meeting other Marvel characters, or do you take more time on each episode to see his love life go well or bad, either or? But it's a little confusing on that, but not like it's ruining the whole season or nothing, but it's just, I'm very curious of where they're going with that, because it can be so much. So also in this episode, we see again that we learn that Vanessa's client, speaking of Vanessa, turns out is Sebastian or Bashing. I think it's Bashing or Sebastian Cooper. And he's actually Moose. And he ties her up and has her scared to death. But it was very interesting. Like, they kind of glanced over his origin story a little bit. Not a little bit, but a lot. When the female detective who was working on this case, told Mayor Fisk, about why he murdered his parents, or how he could have been potentially killing his jiu-jitsu coach, which is like a karate coach, basically. And I guess he was kind of good, but he didn't do enough of it. But then he can fight, though, so it's kind of interesting on that. But they kind of glazed over it, which is, again, that's not a big deal to me. But I wish they didn't glaze it over so much. I think if we had a better... I know they were trying to get you to listen to every word or phrase that Moose was saying while he was having a conversation with Heather and stuff. But I think if the scene where Mayor Fisk and that detective kind of just talked about it more straightforward, not trying to follow like Moose's like riddles or the way he's saying it, because I guess the showrunners decided that that's what we should be hooked on, which again is fine. But I'm saying that because I like this character so much. This is a character that has been in a lot of Marvel comic books with other Marvel characters. And this character, and I didn't know much about him, but when I saw him in this series and I done some research about him and what comic books people like, comic books, I should say, they like seeing him in and read about. There's a lot of them. There's one, I forget the one in the name of the comic books, but there's one where he was in a comic book with Carnage, and that's where it got me really hooked on. I'm like, okay, so this is I think this is a character that is a thing within the Marvel comic books, and I found some really good ones that I like. And to me, this is a character that obviously, as we learn, that after he gets shot basically by Heather, because we get a big action packed scene, and I love the fighting, and I love how Mayor Fist sent his task force, and then Daredevil showed up so close to the same time, and we saw this because Heather's blood was getting taken away, and pumped out pretty much, and she shot Moose in the chest like 4 times, so it's real easy to presume he's dead. Now, let me go back to what I mean about the comic books, because in the comic books, in Marvel Comics, basically, they go obviously more into deeper detail, but he has such a unique ability, and I think he does get power. I don't know if he's a mutant or like he gets superpowers or super evil villain powers, I should say. But it's a unique thing that he has it, and it has to do with blood, human blood and stuff. And he's like a psychopath killer, but with some evil superpower abilities. And I was hoping to see more on that, but Marvel Studios, Marvel Television, Kevin Feige, whoever you want to blame it to, or whatever terms you want to use it as, they always kill these characters that I feel like they can get more stories out of, because you're in a lot of Marvel comic book series, whether it's Daredevil, Spider-Man, the Hulk, etc. I'm not saying Moose was in a comic book with the Hulk, but he was in an Avenger comic books. He's been in comic books with Iron Man. So this character has been there a lot, and mostly Daredevil too, of course. But I feel like this character should have stayed alive longer. So, I'm hoping that this character's not dead. Now, I would like to believe that the person who brought back Bullseye alive or saved him, I would like to believe that they're going to do that with Moose. Whoever hooked up Bullseye, I hope they do this with Moose, which I'm really hoping in a way. And again, I love the fighting. I love how in that fight scene, Daredevil took it to a level where he shanked dude. Like, he took the weapon that he uses to, glide through buildings like Batman kind of does, and it went through the guy's arm, or a little bit of his arm or shoulder. But he was, because he was going to shoot Heather, right? And I think that was really cool, and I love that he took him to a level. But I didn't want him to die, but I didn't want Moose to die, and that's really such a bummer if he's officially dead, like in this series, because that's a character I believe that the MCU could use more. I think I liked it. Because there's going to be a time where they're not going to be able to use Kingpin in the MCU, like maybe in Spider-Man. But Moose, to me, would work with like the Punisher. But if you want me to go a cinematic movie, right? Moose in a Thunderbolts movie would work. Moose in a Black Widow movie would work. Even in a Wakanda movie, that it would work. I believe he's a psychopath, but he's a psychopath who's willing to go above and beyond just to do what he wants to do in Hell's Kitchen, which would go to a place like Wakanda. And I like that idea, but I think they killed him off too early. And it's only episode 7. I think he should have survived, and I'm hoping he does in a way. Now, obviously, Sony owns Spider-Man, so I really can't I can't guarantee, but if I could, Moose in a Spider-Man movie, like Spider-Man 4, that would make sense too. But if they wanted to just do a more grounded level storytelling with Spider-Man, which is played by Tom Holland in the MCU. I would love to see that. But even that, if they couldn't shoot that high, maybe like a season 2 of Moon Knight or a season 2 of Secret Invasion, like that would be cool. But I guess not. But it's okay because I don't think he's dead. But also in this episode, we see that Heather wakes up in the hospital, and it kind of hints that she kind of figured out that Matt Murdock is Daredevil and stuff. And also, Mayor Fisk and his police task force took all the credit because they changed the story like a dirty cop would. And they took all the credit and said they got Moose and hold up his mask. So, again, I can't... It's easy to say he's officially dead. And it's sad, again. Because I think, again, that's a character they should use, but they're not. And, it just... I thought it'd be really good. But other than that, I love the episode. I love the way it went. I thought it was a banger. And it had such a great moment. It kept me on the edge of your seat. And, I didn't know where they were going to go with this. Like, was Heather going to make it? Was Heather not? Obviously, she made it. And, like, it teased the idea of Daredevil crossing that line. Like, I think that's the thing. Again, the whole theme is Daredevil born again, right? And, I think, if he doesn't figure it out, which, but that we do know there's a season 2. So I think this whole thing is about watching him become a better vigilante and have a new look on the character Daredevil. And I think it's going to be more comic book accurate. I don't think he's going to be like Batman dark, but I think he's going to be more lighthearted like he should be. I think once he forgives himself over Foggy, I think that's the process of change that we'll see through this, in my opinion, on that. But I loved it. I loved it for that. And I like that they're sticking to that. And maybe that's why they had to kill that character off, Moose, to proceed that story. I don't know. Now, when it comes to Heather figuring out, with her, again, like I said earlier, I think this love story with her, this story that they have with her and Daredevil, I think it's just like, it's been piled on too much. And now that this is more MCU related officially, not just, oh, it was, and it's not, now it is, now it's not, and now it is, obviously. This is more like, okay, that you can't really balance out a love story with these characters. Not just with Daredevil, but a lot of them. Because it worked for Steve Rogers, Captain America, because in the Avengers Endgame, he went back to her. But that's because he was from a different time era. Right? Obviously, it's going to work for Spider-Man because it's Mary Jane Watson. It's going to work. When it comes to Daredevil, the diehard fans would say Elektra is his true love. And that if he does have a happy ending, which he has had these happy endings before finding true love with Elektra, is in obviously the comic books. But to compare it to a live action, Marvel and DC Comics, or DC Studios and Marvel Studios, they just don't, I don't think they believe their characters should have that happy ending. It's like Batman and Catwoman. Like, these two have had that ending where they fell in love, got married, had kids, had a daughter, and then she becomes a vigilante, of course, right? And, that has happened with Daredevil and Elektra, which they have a daughter and stuff. But would they do that in a live action in a cinematic universe? I don't think they would, because I don't think they believe that makes money. I think they believe tragic sells. They believe that the plot twist sells. They believe in long term in the story until they can financially successfully no more do it until that movie flops, right? And even in like the Dark Knight trilogy, which I'm going back to DC Comics with, which is Batman, the 3 Dark Knight movies, yeah, Bruce Wayne and Catwoman were found in Italy or somewhere hanging out, living a love life. But that means that movie ended. Like, does Marvel want to end Daredevil and then pass the torch to the daughter or something, right? And sometimes I don't think they want to do that. And I think DC Studios doesn't want to do that with their characters, because I believe to them in both studios, I don't think in their mind, they don't think they'll make money off of that. So when I think of Heather, this story doesn't really need to be needed and stuff. Like, maybe they should have broken up or just killed off the character, But I also believe that, eventually we're going to see Elektra. And I think that's what the diehard fans want. And I think the casual viewers, when they see Elektra, they're going to like, this one makes sense because they're both vigilantes in their own ways. Or they both are breaking the laws in the eyes of the government and the police in the MCU, of course. So I think that makes sense. And I think that, again, I think it makes no sense. I think they should have just ended that relationship earlier. But again, it's not a bad thing. I think that Heather, this character, is what this story needs, obviously, for season 1 to make it make sense and everything, and to really, truly enjoy season 1. So you'll be excited to see season 2, of course. So that strategy works, obviously. But I think the idea of like, now they're foreshadowing or teasing the idea of like, this relationship's not going to work out, is that Daredevil's going to have to be heartbroken, because I see the connection, because it really connects to the title Born Again, because it's all about us watching Matt Murdock find a new way, a new vision of being Daredevil. And again, I believe they're going to go more comic book accurate with it, because it's the MCU. So that's a good thing in my mind. But I think that, to me, since he's in the MCU, I think his love story with Heather should be a lesser focus. And I think it's more important watching him and Kingpin, or AKA Mayor Fisk, come to battle, come cross to cross. Like, I think that's what it should be about, to me. And then explaining to us how this is all going to affect the MCU, like when the Thunderbolts come out. How does this affect, the Fantastic Four? And how does season 2 get affected by the Thunderbolts and the Fantastic Four movie? So I think that's more focus of the story they should focus on, and less focus on his love life at this moment in time, because, I think if they do, we might as well just do Elektra. or go back to She-Hulk. That makes more sense to me. So I don't know, but again, it's not a complaint. But that's what I would have done. That's what I think they should focus less on, because now there's so much stories you can tell with Daredevil and go with this character now that he's officially in the MCU, of course. So I just basically feel like it should just be more Daredevil and Mayor Fisk, aka Kingpin. I don't think these other ones. Now, the Angelique Del Torres, that one to me is important. They should definitely focus on too, because, she does become White Tiger. And this, to me, again, like I've been saying, like, she should be one of the characters that should be in the newest member, the newest replacement for the Avengers. Like, that's a passing of the torch that should be told. And I think watching her little origin story in this series isn't going to even make it greater. And that's what they should focus on. That's what I'm saying. Focus less on Daredevil's romantic life and focus more on the main story and the girl and the White Tiger, who shall be, and who's known for working with Spider-Man. So that, to me, that's more important. So that's what I think. But other than that, if I give this a 1 out of 10, I'm definitely giving this a 10. This was a banger of a banger, and it was great. I loved it. I really can't wait for episode 8. I think it's going to be good. I know it is. I hope so. But I definitely love this, guys. And, the theory to me is that I think Mayor Fisk is going to go down, and I think he's going to get impeached. And I believe Daniel is somewhat the lost son of Wilson Fisk. Why? Because I bet you there's just a time gap period too, where, like, we know Vanessa has cheated on him. So I think in his mind he decided to cheat on his wife. He was gone for a lot. We know that. And yeah, it was with Echo, but I think he had an affair in life. So who knows? But that's just my theory. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And thank you so much for listening to my reviews. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talking Entertainment official channel. Subscribe, hit that notification button so you can always be updated with all my latest content. Thank you guys, and peace.